This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe. Welcome back. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about 3 of the Mag 7 stocks, and I want to evaluate where they're situated right now, but in a slightly different way. We're going to look at 4 different time frames, and I want to evaluate where the next potential trade opportunity could be. So I think this will give you a little bit more insight into how I think. And I think you'll find it useful. Now, if you're interested in learning more about MACD and ADX in multiple timeframes, I would suggest starting with the book. You can go to rabilstockresearch.com/book for more information. Also, if you enjoy this content, please hit that like button and also subscribe. Okay, we're going to start out with Microsoft. And again, I like to do this just at the beginning. I have new viewers each week that have never seen this channel. So that monthly is in the bottom left, weekly in the bottom right, daily in the upper right, and then an hourly in the upper left. This is the way I like to have this look. I started doing this back, I would say back in the early 2000s. Had some advice that you want to start with the bigger time frame and kind of work your way back this way. For some reason, the way your brain works, it can have a bigger impact. But for me, I like it because I've got these 2 time frames together. I've got these 2 time frames together, and I've got these 2 time frames together. So if I'm looking, I'm focusing a little bit more on swing trading, shorter term trades, that type of thing. I'm probably going to be, looking at these 2 up here. If I'm looking for that intermediate term move, I'm going to be watching these 2 a little bit more closely when I'm browsing through a list. And then when I do for my subscribers, I start here because I want to have the bias to the upside in most of the trades, or I want to see some big sweeping turnaround developing on the bigger time frames, and then we can play and take advantage on the smaller time frames if we want. All right, so we've got that. Now, when I look at this, the first thing I'm thinking is there any time frame that's really trending nicely? All right, and so for a while there, obviously we had the weekly fitting that description, all right? But I will say that this last pullback was just a little harsh. If I look at the way this is pulling in, this isn't the kind of pullback that I would be looking for. It's a little too vertical in its nature, all right? When I look at pullbacks, I kind of want them to have a little bit more of a soft landing type of a pullback as opposed to a vertical drop. This is 3 kind of strong red bars. Now, I don't mind it being 3 red bars, but if you notice, we've only had, this is the 3rd bar, and we're already in the process of breaking. It looks like we could potentially be breaking this line. And I look down and I see MACD is crossing back down with divergence. Okay, and I see the ADX barely made it above 25. This isn't so the moment I see that on this time frame, I'm kind of like, I'm a no. It's just not going to happen. I'm crossing this off the list. If I'm looking to play weekly dailies, this is just an immediate pass over. I'm not looking at this for any length of time. Now, what it does tell me is that what this is doing, and the fact that we're starting to potentially break the 18-week, could set up the monthly for the first time in a while. Because if you notice the way this played out, it kind of V-bottomed, and then it had this little hesitation pinch play, right? Very nice setup with ADX kicking back into gear. But we haven't had another pullback towards the 18-month line. I like this time frame. The momentum is good. Everything looks okay. The problem is that it's a little overbought. I need it to pull back a little bit, and what this is telling me is we have that potential coming up. Now, I got to be patient, right? I mean, I look at this stock all the time. I get requests for this all the time. I get clients asking me about it. But right now, it's just kind of on hold. It's on the shelf. I know that it's around. I see it plenty of time, but I know I'm not in a big hurry, at least on these 2 time frames. Now, is there a way that I would play it off of these 2 time frames? I mean, it's possible. It's possible, but it's not highly probable. And the reason is we would have to see, you see the strength of the sellers on this decline? So we had this drop, and the sellers caused the ADX to get this ADX to pop above 25. So when I see that, I know that I'm not in any kind of big hurry. Now, the only way that I could consider is if there weren't any more downside follow through and this kind of regathered itself and then green DI took over and we showed improving performance without doing a whole lot more damage here. And this maybe spending a little bit more time working this off, working this down. It's possible. It's just not something, I mean, again, there's so many better patterns for a weekly daily that I would be interested in. And then on a short-term basis, the actual next potential setup could be a rally to a declining 18 with this strength. If we get an opposing trend pattern on the hourly, then I could consider playing this, especially if this 18 is still rolling, to play this for, next trend support on the monthly. You see what I mean? So I could be looking at this for a potential short play, for a trading play to the downside. That certainly has the potential, especially based on what we're seeing in the momentum on the weekly and the fact that we have room here. So these two time frames are sort of determining whether I want to do something. And then I come to here and I see, okay, I've got strength developing. I've got a MACD zero line crossing. If we get a pinch play or something like that, and this forms some kind of a trigger setup, sort of like what happened here already, which was this sort of an opposing trend trigger with a zero line reversal and no strength in the ADX, then I could play it. So we'll have to see if it develops that way as a potential short play. This really holds true for the market as well, because we have the decline, the 18 rolling over. We could get the S&P to rally up towards the 18-day. But I don't want to get off track. I just want you to understand how I'm thinking when I go through and look at this. So the next real potential long play is off a monthly, weekly. On the short side, I could consider it on a potential rally. Now, I'm going to be ultra picky if I'm doing that. And as most of you know, I don't really like shorting uptrends and doing counter trend plays in a bull market. It's a lot of work, but it is something you could do if you're interested. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's look at something like Google. So here's the thing. We've got the same sort of pattern developing on the monthly chart. We've got good strength. We've got a pretty good move. The only negative is that we haven't had a pullback towards the 18-month line, which is what we need. All right. Now, the pullback actually on the weekly chart is showing a crossover in MACD, and it's pretty far away from the zero line. And we're getting contraction to form. And we're getting that confirmation with the ADX turning down after making a pretty strong move to the upside. And we're getting this sort of contraction look to these lines. They look like they're about to cross. And, we're about to break through the 18-week. And again, look at the vertical nature of the drop. So I'm not saying it's not possible. These could just turn on a dime and go straight up. I just think it's very low probability. I would not be looking for this as a potential setup to the upside. Now, this is a little bit better than Microsoft because this has better strength here. So this could get up and going. This could go through a correction. This could consolidate here, find support without rolling the 18-week. If we don't roll the 18-week, this could still set up on the weekly daily. So the potential is there, but you do notice that the red DI is breaking out. It's very, very strong reading on this decline. So again, the moment I see that, I'm kind of like, there's no rush on this. I'll be watching this. I'll be looking at this at least probably a couple times a week at a minimum. But I got the big red bar last week. I got the MACD crossover. This is just, again, it's on the shelf. Not as long of a shelf wait as Microsoft, but it is something that it's not an imminent trade. It's not something I'd be interested in, right this second. Now, let's go ahead and switch over to Apple. All right. Now, when we look at what's taking place here, we've got a pretty nice breakout that took place crossing above the 200 mark. We've got new emerging green DI kicking into gear, and red never took over. If you notice, we had green showing the strength to the upside, and then we went through this long sort of sideways corrective phase, but red never took over. Green has maintained control and command throughout this. MACD has stayed above the zero line, and we formed a double bottom, and then we broke out. All right, so those are all, I would say, positives. Now, the weekly chart showed a nice strength to the upside, and it actually just got a little stretched away from not only the breakout area, but away from its 18-week. But look at the momentum condition here. We don't have a crossover signal to the downside. We don't have any sign of momentum loss based on the ADX. So I think this is a potential setup on a weekly daily. You see what I mean? Like we could pull back here and consolidate, and this would look pretty good. So when I see this, when I look at this chart, the first thing that catches my eye is this, what's happening here, and then I go down and look at this. So I can see this big breakout pattern with good momentum condition based on the price action itself, and then I can look it down here and get that confirmation. So I like the look of this. Now, if we go and we see what's taking place on the daily's rolling over after a pretty good break. All right. But we had really good momentum going into that. There wasn't any sign of divergence. So I'm sort of thinking if we can get some kind of an opposing trend trigger that causes this 18 potentially to cross down below the 40, or at least have them come and kiss and have the MACD come down closer to the 0 line and get this ADX down below both of the DI lines, we could be really on the lookout for some kind of a trigger back to the upside in this stock. So as I'm going through and evaluating, I'm looking at thousands and thousands of charts and quickly ascertaining. Most of the time I'm just looking at, is there something worthwhile going on these two time frames? But if I were going to play just weekly dailies and I'm going through my own list or something like that, I'm doing this type of valuation. I'm quickly looking to see if there's strength, and if the price pattern and structure tells me that I can play a pullback. I definitely could on this if we get the right kind of pullback, if it sets up, and then we have to get an opposing trend pattern in some way. Meaning, when I say opposing trend, I'm basically saying I want this trend to start turning to the downside. It doesn't have to have a confirmed reversal to the downside, but we want some form of potential reversal that we'd be looking for failure going back to the upside, meaning instead of it breaking down and rolling over, we'd actually get a reversal and getting back in line with the higher time frame. So hopefully this was sort of a useful exercise to understand kind of how I think when I'm going through a list and looking at charts and making sure I know what I'm seeing on the higher time frame. And before I even look at the smaller time frame, I want to see what I like on the higher time frame first. That's why when I go through and do my analysis for my subscribers and the lists I put out each week, I'm looking at these two because for the bigger picture plays, it's the monthly that's important. And for the intermediate term plays, it's the weekly that's important. Then I want to go down to use these smaller time frames to help with the timing. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.